The champagne glass shattered against the marble floor as my husband of 25 years stood before our entire social circle and announced he was trading me in for a 26-year-old yoga instructor. "I've outgrown this marriage, Diana," he said with that practiced smile of his. "Amber makes me feel alive again. I need you packed and gone by Monday. The penthouse needs to be ready for us." The room gasped. My sister grabbed my hand. My daughter's eyes filled with tears. But me? I reached into my Chanel clutch, pulled out a crisp manila folder, and walked slowly to the microphone. "Actually, Daniel," I said, my voice steady as stone, "there's something you seem to have forgotten." I held up the property deed, my name, and only my name, embossed across the top. "This penthouse you're kicking me out of? I bought it. With my inheritance. 15 years ago. You've been living in my home all this time." The color drained from his face like water from a sink. That's when I knew. This divorce was going to be beautiful. My name is Diana Castellano, and this is the story of how my husband's affair became the best thing that ever happened to me. Before we dive into this wild ride, I want to know, where are you watching from? Are you in Miami like me? Maybe Chicago, Atlanta, Houston, or New York? Drop your city in the comments below. I love connecting with all of you beautiful souls. And if you're new to Tales by Auntie Pearl, welcome to the family. Hit that subscribe button because we share real stories about betrayal, resilience, and justice every single week. Trust me, honey, you do not want to miss what happens next in this story. Now, let me take you back to the beginning, back to when I still believed in fairy tales and thought love conquered all. My name is Diana Marie Castellano. I'm 53 years old, and I work as the Chief Operations Officer at a luxury hospitality firm here in Miami. But 26 years ago, I was just Deanna Rodriguez, a 27-year-old hotel manager with big dreams and bigger ambitions. I met Daniel Whitmore at an industry conference in Orlando. He was 30, devastatingly handsome, and had this confidence that filled every room he entered. He worked in commercial real estate and had just closed his first major deal. We clicked instantly. He was driven, charismatic, and he looked at me like I was the only woman in the world. Within 8 months, we were engaged. Within 18 months, we had a fairy tale wedding at the Biltmore Hotel with 300 guests and a reception that people still talk about today. But here's what nobody tells you about fairy tales. They don't mention what happens after happily ever after. My grandmother, Rosa Elena Rodriguez, was the matriarch of our Cuban-American family. She'd immigrated from Havana in 1962 with nothing but a suitcase and her dignity. She built a successful catering business from scratch and raised 4 children as a single mother after my grandfather passed away. Abuela Rosa was tough as nails and twice as sharp. She pulled me aside the night before my wedding and said something I'll never forget. "Mija, I love Daniel, but listen to me carefully. Always keep something that's yours alone, not yours and his, just yours. A woman with nothing in her own name is a woman with no power. Promise me." I was young and in love and naive. I promised her, but I didn't really understand. I thought marriage meant everything was ours. I thought partnership meant total transparency and shared ownership of everything. Thank God Abuela Rosa knew better. Daniel and I started our marriage in a modest 2-bedroom condo in Coral Gables. We were happy, genuinely happy. I was climbing the corporate ladder in hospitality management, and Daniel was building his reputation in real estate development. We talked about our future constantly: children, wealth, legacy, building an empire together. In 2002, our son Christopher was born. 2 years later came our daughter Sophia. Those early years were chaos, beautiful, exhausting, incredible chaos. Daniel was working 18-hour days, chasing bigger deals and bigger commissions. His income was unpredictable. Some months we'd make 6 figures, other months barely enough to cover expenses. I became the anchor. My salary was steady, reliable. I handled every bill, managed every account, kept our household running while Daniel chased his dreams. And I didn't mind. I believed in him. I believed in us. When Abuela Rosa passed away in 2009, she left me an inheritance of $45,000. It was everything she'd saved from 40 years of running her catering business, every penny she'd squirreled away, every sacrifice she'd made. In her will was a letter written in her elegant script. "Deanna, mi amor, use this money to buy something that belongs only to you, not you and Daniel. Just you. I know you love him, but a smart woman protects herself. This is my final gift to you. Security. Promise me you'll use it wisely. I sat in the lawyer's office crying as I read those words. Even in death, my grandmother was protecting me. Daniel and I had been saving for years to buy our dream home. With Abuela's inheritance and my savings from bonuses and promotions, we finally had enough for a down payment on a stunning 3-bedroom penthouse in Brickell, with floor-to-ceiling windows and views of Biscayne Bay. When we sat down with our real estate agent, Daniel naturally assumed both our names would go on the deed. But I heard Abuela Rosa's voice in my head as clear as day. Just yours, mija. Just yours. I told Daniel that my credit score was significantly higher and that putting the property solely in my name would get us better mortgage terms and a lower interest rate. He was surprised, but accepted the explanation. Looking back now, I realize my grandmother's wisdom was flowing through me even when I didn't fully comprehend it. That decision, putting that penthouse in my name alone, would become my salvation 15 years later. For the first 20 years, our marriage was solid. We were partners, best friends, lovers. Daniel eventually became a partner at his real estate firm, and our financial situation stabilized beautifully. We took family vacations to Turks and Caicos, hosted elaborate dinner parties, attended charity galas. Christopher excelled in lacrosse. Sophia became a competitive dancer. From the outside, we looked like the American dream, the perfect multicultural family with the perfect life. Daniel was attentive, romantic, present. He called me my queen, told me I was beautiful, thanked me for holding everything together during the lean years. But somewhere around year 22, something shifted. It was so subtle at first that I convinced myself I was imagining things. Daniel started working late, not occasionally, constantly. 4, sometimes 5 nights a week, he'd come home after 10 o'clock smelling like expensive cologne I hadn't bought him. Not the Creed Aventus I'd given him for his birthday. Something else. Something deliberate. He joined an exclusive gym in Wynwood and became obsessed with his appearance in ways he'd never been before. Personal trainer 3 times a week, new designer clothes that showed off his physique, skincare routines, hair appointments every 2 weeks. He was 51 years old acting like he was preparing for something. Or someone. My best friend Claudia noticed before I did. She pulled me aside after brunch one Sunday and said, "Diana, I don't want to overstep, but Daniel seems different. He's different. You see it, don't you?" I defended him. I made excuses. I said he was just taking better care of himself, that it was healthy, that I should be supportive. But deep down, that little voice whispered, something's wrong. One evening, I finally confronted him. I asked him why he was coming home so late, why he suddenly needed a high-end gym membership when we had a full home gym in our building. He looked at me like I'd insulted his entire existence. "You're being paranoid, Diana," he said, his voice cold and measured. "I'm working my ass off to maintain our lifestyle, and you're interrogating me like I'm a criminal? That's toxic behavior. That's controlling." He turned it around so skillfully that I actually apologized. I apologized for caring about my own marriage. Then came the phone incident. I wasn't snooping. I need to be absolutely clear about that. His phone was sitting on the kitchen island while he was in the shower, and it lit up with a text notification. I glanced at it reflexively. The message was from someone named Amber. "Can't stop thinking about last night. You're incredible. Tomorrow night at my place?" My stomach dropped to the floor. When Daniel came out of the shower, I asked him, calmly, rationally, who Amber was. He didn't even hesitate. "She's a client," he said smoothly. "We're working on a development project together. You're reading into things that aren't there, Diana." But after that conversation, his phone suddenly had a password. For 22 years, we'd never had passwords on our phones. Now his was locked down like Fort Knox. Things deteriorated rapidly after that. The affection disappeared completely. He'd come to bed late, scroll on his phone with his back to me, and fall asleep without a word. The intimacy we'd shared for over 2 decades just evaporated. But what hurt even more than the distance was the criticism. Suddenly, nothing I did was good enough. My cooking was too heavy. I was letting myself go. He'd make comments like, "Melissa at my office is 50 and she still works out every day and dresses professionally." Every comment was a small knife to my self-esteem. I tried everything to fix it. I started waking up at 5:30 a.m. to work out with a trainer. I changed my hairstyle, updated my wardrobe, watched cooking videos to make healthier meals. I smiled more, complained less, tried to become the woman he seemed to want, but nothing worked. Because the problem was never me. He was already somewhere else, with someone else. The worst part? He started treating me like his personal assistant instead of his wife. He'd leave dishes in the sink expecting me to clean them. He'd ask, "What's for dinner?" Like I was the hired help. Gone was the partner who used to cook with me, who thanked me for everything I did. I'd become invisible to him except when he needed something. And then I started noticing the looks at our country club. Women I'd known for years would get quiet when I approached. They'd exchange glances, offer tight, sympathetic smiles that made my skin crawl. Someone knew something. Everyone knew something. Everyone except me. Or maybe I knew too. Maybe I was just too terrified to admit that my marriage, my 23-year partnership, was already over. The breaking point came on my 51st birthday. Daniel forgot, completely forgot. No card, no gift, no acknowledgement whatsoever. But 3 days later, I overheard him on the phone ordering 24 roses and a Cartier bracelet for Amber's birthday. When I mentioned it, he said, "She's an important client, Diana. It's good business." The message was crystal clear. She mattered. I didn't. I started finding evidence everywhere. Hotel receipts in his jacket pockets, charges on our joint credit card for restaurants we'd never been to together. Weekend business trips that seemed to have no actual business purpose. Every time I confronted him, he had an answer for everything. Always confident, always smooth, always making me feel like I was the crazy one for asking questions. Then he started comparing me to other women, openly, cruelly. We'd be watching television and he'd point at an actress and say, "See, that's how a woman should look at 50. She takes care of herself." Or he'd mention a colleague who just had twins and still has an incredible body. Each comment was designed to make me feel small, inadequate, old. And it worked. I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize myself anymore. Not because my appearance had changed drastically, but because he'd systematically destroyed my confidence piece by piece. Christopher, our 24-year-old son, noticed. He came home from work one evening, watched his father barely acknowledge me at dinner, and pulled me aside afterward. "Mom, are you and Dad okay? The way he treats you, it's not right. It's not how a man should treat his wife." Hearing my son articulate what I'd been denying broke something inside me. If Christopher could see it, it was real. I wasn't crazy. Then Daniel stopped wearing his wedding ring. After 24 years of marriage, he just took it off. When I asked why, he said, "It's uncomfortable. It gets in the way at the gym." A wedding ring, the symbol of our commitment, gone. Around the same time, I noticed large withdrawals from our joint account. 4,000 here, 7,000 there. He wasn't even hiding it anymore. He didn't respect me enough to hide it. That's when I started documenting everything. Screenshots of bank statements, photos of receipts, saved text messages, dates and times of his late nights. Claudia, who'd been through a brutal divorce 3 years earlier, told me, "Diana, I don't want to scare you, but you need to protect yourself. Talk to a lawyer. Just know your rights. Knowledge is power." I made an appointment with a divorce attorney. I didn't tell Daniel. For the first time in our entire marriage, I had a secret too. My mental health was deteriorating. I couldn't sleep. I'd lie awake replaying every conversation, every criticism, every cold interaction. I developed anxiety so severe I'd get chest pains. I lost 20 pounds in 6 weeks, not from working out, but from stress and not being able to eat. I was becoming a ghost of myself. Then came the incident that shattered whatever denial I had left. Sophia's college graduation dinner. We'd planned it for months, a celebration at her favorite restaurant, the whole family together, a milestone moment. The morning of, Daniel texted me, "Emergency meeting with investors. Can't make it. Tell Sophia I'm sorry." I was furious, but I covered for him. I smiled through dinner, pretended he was sick, and watched my daughter's face fall when she realized her father had chosen work over one of the most important days of her life. 2 days later, Sophia showed me an Instagram post, a photo, Daniel at an upscale restaurant, the same night as her graduation dinner. But he wasn't alone. He was sitting across from a young woman, beautiful, blonde, mid-20s at most. She'd posted it with the caption, "Best night with my favorite person," and tagged the location. The same city, the same night. He hadn't been at an investor meeting, he'd been with her. I confronted him the moment he walked through the door that night. I showed him the photo. Instead of apologizing, instead of explaining, he exploded. "You're stalking me on social media now? That's pathetic, Diana. You're paranoid. You're suffocating me. Maybe if you took care of yourself instead of obsessing over me, we wouldn't have these problems. You've let yourself go. You're bitter. You're exhausting." His words were weapons, and every single one hit their target. That night, Daniel moved into the guest bedroom. He said he needed space. We both knew what it really meant. Our marriage was over in everything but name. And the worst part? He started criticizing me in front of Christopher and Sophia, making little comments about my cooking, my appearance, my attitude during family dinners. Our children would sit there uncomfortable and silent, not knowing how to defend me without causing a bigger explosion. I'd never felt more alone in my entire life. Our 25th wedding anniversary was approaching. A quarter of a century. 25 years. Despite everything, despite the coldness, the distance, the obvious affair, some foolish part of me hoped Daniel would remember what we'd built together. Maybe he'd come to his senses. Maybe we could still salvage something. I planned an intimate dinner at the restaurant where he'd proposed all those years ago. I bought a beautiful dress. I was ready to fight for us one last time. When I mentioned the anniversary, Daniel looked at me with this strange expression and said, "Don't worry, I have something very special planned." The way he said it should have been my warning. There was something cold in his smile, something final. But I chose to hear hope instead of the goodbye it actually was. 3 weeks before our anniversary, Daniel asked me to sit down. It was a Tuesday evening. Sophia had just called to tell me about her new job offer, and I was still smiling when Daniel walked into the living room with his arms crossed. No preamble, no gentle lead-in. He just looked at me and said, "Diana, I'm not happy. I haven't been happy in years. I want a divorce." The room tilted. The air left my lungs. 25 years, and this was how it ended. A casual announcement delivered like he was telling me what he wanted for dinner. I asked if we could try counseling, if we could work on things, if there was any hope. He actually laughed. "There's nothing to work on," he said. "I've moved on." Then came the words that changed everything. "I've been seeing someone. Her name is Amber. She's 26. She teaches yoga. I've been with her for 2 years." 2 years. 2 years while I was trying to save our marriage, losing sleep, questioning myself, destroying my mental health. 2 years while he was building an entire separate life. "She makes me feel young again, Diana," he said, looking at me like I was a stranger. "You've aged. We're in different stages of life now." Aged, I'd aged supporting him, raising our children, managing our household while he built his career. I'd aged being faithful, loyal, committed, and this was my reward. But he wasn't finished. "I want you out of the penthouse," he said matter-of-factly. "I'll give you until the end of the month, but I need you gone. I'm moving Amber in, and it'll be awkward with you still here." The penthouse. My penthouse. The one my grandmother's inheritance had helped me purchase. The one where I'd raised our children, created our home, built our life. He wanted me out like I was a tenant whose lease had expired. I sat there in shock, tears streaming down my face, watching 25 years dissolve in a 15-minute conversation. He stood up, grabbed his keys, and left. Just walked out. I later found out he went straight to her apartment. While I was falling apart, he was celebrating his freedom. I called my sister Elena, sobbing so hard I could barely form words. She rushed over immediately. I told her everything, the affair, the divorce demand, him ordering me out of the penthouse. And that's when Elena grabbed my shoulders and said the words that changed everything. "Diana, wait, that penthouse is yours. Your name is on the deed, not his. Yours." It hit me like lightning. Abuela Rosa's voice echoed in my mind. "Always keep something in your own name, mija. Always." The penthouse was mine. Legally, completely, irrevocably mine. Daniel had been living in my home for 15 years, and he'd somehow convinced himself, and almost convinced me, that it belonged to him. Something shifted in that moment. The grief transformed into clarity. The pain crystallized into power. Daniel wanted to humiliate me? He wanted to discard me after 25 years like I was nothing? Fine. I'd give him a show he'd never forget. I wiped my tears, looked at Elena, and said, "Call the attorney. Tell her I need divorce papers drawn up immediately. And Elena, tell her to make them ready for public delivery. If Daniel wanted to make an announcement at our anniversary party, I'd make one too." The war wasn't over. It had just begun. And this time I wasn't fighting as a woman begging for scraps of affection. I was fighting as a woman who'd finally remembered her power. The next morning, I was sitting in attorney Rebecca Stern's office. Rebecca was a shark, one of the best divorce attorneys in Miami, with a reputation for protecting her clients ruthlessly. I brought everything: bank statements, the property deed, screenshots of Instagram posts, hotel receipts, credit card statements, everything I'd been documenting for months. Rebecca reviewed it all carefully, then looked up at me with a slight smile. "Diana, this penthouse, it's 100% yours. Your name only. In Florida, that makes it your separate property. He has absolutely zero legal claim to it." Hearing those words felt like oxygen returning to my lungs. But Rebecca had more information. She'd done some preliminary investigation. Apparently, Daniel had been sloppy. He'd used our joint credit card to purchase an engagement ring 4 weeks ago. $5,000 at Tiffany & Co. My husband of 25 years was planning to propose to another woman before our divorce was even filed. I told Christopher and Sophia everything that evening. They deserved the truth. Christopher was livid. I'd never seen him so angry. He wanted to confront Daniel immediately. Sophia cried, but then she looked at me with fierce determination and said, "Mom, whatever you need, we're with you. Team Diana all the way." Not him. Their support gave me strength I didn't know I possessed. Then came the strategic part. I had to let Daniel think he'd won. For the next 3 weeks, I played the defeated wife perfectly. I shuffled around the penthouse looking broken. I told him I'd start apartment hunting. I agreed that yes, having the anniversary party was still a good idea. For appearances, I said quietly. He seemed satisfied, relieved even. What I didn't tell him was that he was planning the anniversary party that would become his public reckoning. Daniel had invited everyone: my family, his family, friends from the country club, colleagues from his firm. He'd told everyone we were celebrating 25 years. But I knew the truth. He was planning to announce his departure there, probably with Amber on his arm, using our anniversary as the stage for my humiliation. So I prepared my own announcement. Rebecca drafted the divorce papers, citing adultery and emotional abuse. We compiled everything: the property deed, evidence of the affair, financial records showing unauthorized withdrawals. Everything was organized in a leather portfolio, ready to be presented. Rebecca even agreed to attend the party as a family friend, ready to serve him the papers at precisely the right moment. I practiced my speech every single night, in front of the bathroom mirror, in my car, while getting ready for work. I rehearsed my tone, my posture, every single word. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to be calm, dignified, and absolutely devastating. The day of the party, Elena came over early with reinforcements: her hairstylist, a makeup artist, and 4 dress options. "You're walking in there looking like the goddess you are," she said. "Let him see exactly what he's losing." They transformed me. My hair was styled in elegant waves. My makeup was flawless, dramatic but sophisticated, and I wore a stunning royal blue dress that made me feel powerful and beautiful. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. I looked radiant, confident, free. Before we left, I set up my phone to record discreetly. I positioned it on a decorative shelf with a clear view of the room. I needed documentation of everything that was about to happen, not just for my own records, but for protection in case Daniel tried to twist the narrative later. Rebecca had her phone ready too. As I walked toward the restaurant, my heart was pounding, but my hands were steady. Daniel wanted a performance. He was about to get the show of his lifetime. And this time, I was writing the script. The anniversary party was held at Rusty Pelican, an elegant waterfront restaurant with panoramic views of Biscayne Bay and the Miami skyline. Daniel had made reservations months ago. Ironically, he'd paid for the entire event himself. The venue was stunning: crystal chandeliers, white orchid centerpieces, champagne towers. About 70 people were there. Our families, close friends, people from the country club, colleagues from Daniel's firm. Everyone was dressed beautifully, smiling, ready to celebrate what they thought was a love story. When I walked in, the room went momentarily silent. I saw heads turn. I heard someone whisper, "Diana looks incredible." Daniel was standing near the bar, and when he saw me, his expression flickered. Surprise, discomfort, maybe even a flash of regret. For a split second, he really looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time in years. But then his face hardened again. He couldn't let himself acknowledge what he was throwing away. And then I saw her, Amber. She was there, sitting at a table near the front, wearing a tight white dress that screamed, "Look at me." Her youth on full display like a trophy. The audacity, the sheer disrespect. She caught my eye and actually smirked, like she'd already won. Elena squeezed my hand. "Breathe," she whispered. "You've got this." After dinner, Daniel stood up and tapped his wine glass with a fork. The distinctive chime cut through the conversation, and the room fell silent. "I want to thank everyone for being here tonight," he began, his voice smooth and confident. 25 years is truly a significant milestone. He talked about our history, about building a life together, about memories we created. For a moment, people were smiling, nodding, thinking this was a touching tribute. Then his tone changed. "But I have to be honest with all of you," Daniel continued, and I felt the shift in the room. 25 years is enough. I've spent a quarter of a century in this marriage, and I've realized something important. I want something different now. Someone who makes me feel alive. Someone younger. Someone vibrant. Gasps rippled through the crowd. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. Christopher stood up from his table, his jaw clenched. Elena's grip on my hand tightened, but Daniel kept going. "Diana, I need you out of the penthouse by Monday. It's time for both of us to move on. I've already made arrangements with someone special." He glanced toward Amber. "And I need the space." The humiliation Daniel intended was landing exactly as he'd planned. Amber was smiling openly now, practically glowing with triumph. Some of his colleagues looked uncomfortable but said nothing. My family was in tears. The entire room was holding its breath, except for one person, me. I stood up slowly, smoothed my dress, and walked toward him with my head high. The room was so silent you could hear the distant sound of boats on the bay outside. "Daniel," I said calmly, my voice clear and strong, "may I have the microphone?" He looked confused but handed it over, probably thinking I was going to beg or cry or make a scene that would embarrass only myself. "Thank you all for being here tonight," I began, looking around the room at faces I'd known for decades. 25 years is significant, but there's something Daniel forgot, something very important. I reached into my clutch and pulled out the property deed, holding it up for everyone to see. This penthouse that Daniel is demanding I leave by Monday, the one he's been living in for the past 15 years, it belongs to me. My grandmother left me an inheritance, and I purchased this property. My name is on this deed, my name only, not his, just mine. Daniel's face drained of all color. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. The room erupted in murmurs. And since Daniel wanted to make this announcement public, let me make mine. I nodded to Rebecca, who stood up from her table and walked over with an elegant leather portfolio. "These are divorce papers, already filed with the court. I'm citing adultery. Because yes, everyone, he's been cheating with that woman right there." I gestured toward Amber without even looking at her. "For 2 years. And I'm citing emotional abuse." Rebecca handed the papers directly to Daniel. He just stood there, frozen, staring at them like they were written in a foreign language. I turned back to the microphone. "So, Daniel, you want someone younger? You want to feel alive? Congratulations. You're free, but you're the one moving out on Monday. The penthouse is mine. This life you thought you were taking from me? You never had the power to give it away." Amber's smirk had completely vanished. Her eyes went wide as reality crashed down around her. She thought she was getting a successful man with assets, with property, with wealth. Instead, she was getting a middle-aged man who'd have to start over with nothing. I watched her face transform from smug satisfaction to panicked realization in real time. My family erupted. Applause, cheers, shouts of, "That's right," and "You tell him." Christopher stood up and raised his glass to me with tears in his eyes. Sophia was on her feet, clapping and crying simultaneously. Even some of Daniel's family members were shaking their heads at him in disgust. His sister Laura actually walked out in protest of his behavior. Daniel tried to speak. His mouth moved, but nothing came out. He looked around the room desperately, searching for support, for sympathy, for anything. He found nothing, just judgment, just consequences. I handed the microphone back to him, picked up my clutch, and walked toward the exit with my head held impossibly high. As I reached the door, I heard Christopher shout, "That's my mother!" The last thing I saw was Daniel standing there, divorce papers trembling in his hands, while Amber gathered her things and rushed toward a side exit. I walked out of that restaurant a free woman. The calls started before I even got home. Daniel calling, texting, leaving voicemails. "Diana, we need to talk. That was completely unnecessary. You embarrassed me. Call me back, please." Now he was saying please. I blocked his number immediately. I had nothing left to say to him. Within 5 days, Amber dumped him. Apparently, when she realized Daniel didn't own the penthouse, didn't have significant assets in his own name, and was about to pay substantial alimony to a wife he'd publicly humiliated, she decided he wasn't as appealing as she'd thought. Someone from his office told Christopher that Amber had already moved on to another partner at the firm, someone younger, wealthier, and unmarried. Daniel had blown up his entire life for a woman who'd never actually wanted him. She'd wanted his lifestyle, the lifestyle I'd helped him build for 25 years. The housing situation was poetic justice. Daniel had to move in with his older brother Richard, who lived in a 2-bedroom apartment in Coconut Grove. Richard's wife was not happy about it. I heard through mutual acquaintances that Daniel was sleeping on their couch, surrounded by cardboard boxes, trying to figure out his next move. The man who demanded I leave his penthouse was now a 54-year-old couch surfer. The irony was delicious. Christopher and Sophia cut off contact with their father completely. Christopher sent him a single text. "What you did to Mom is unforgivable. Don't contact me until you figure out how to be a decent human being." Sophia was even more direct. "You're not the man I thought you were. I'm ashamed to call you my father." Daniel tried to explain himself, tried to justify his actions, but our children weren't hearing it. They'd watched me suffer for years while he paraded his affair. Their loyalty was with me, and it was absolute. The community at our church rallied around me like a protective wall. Claudia organized meals delivered to my penthouse for 3 weeks straight. The women's prayer group came over and prayed blessings over my life and my home. But something else happened that I didn't expect. Women started coming forward with their own stories about Daniel. Quiet conversations in parking lots. Whispered confessions over coffee. He made inappropriate comments to me at the charity gala 2 years ago. He asked for my number once at a fundraiser when you were in the restroom. He told me my dress looked incredible in a way that made me deeply uncomfortable. My husband hadn't just been unfaithful with Amber. He'd been disrespectful to women in our social circle for years. I'd been the last to know. His job performance tanked dramatically. You can't focus on sales targets and client relationships when your personal life has imploded publicly. His boss called him in for a performance review after Daniel missed quotas 3 months in a row. The promotion he'd been expecting, the VP position he'd been working toward for years, went to someone else. Karma was working overtime. Daniel tried to turn his own family against me, painting himself as the victim. She blindsided me. She humiliated me publicly. She's vindictive and cruel. But his mother, sweet, proper Eleanor Whitmore, shut that narrative down immediately. She called me personally to apologize for her son's behavior. "Diana, you did what you had to do, sweetheart. He brought this entirely on himself. I'm embarrassed by him." Even his siblings weren't buying his victim story. They'd seen how he treated me. They'd witnessed the disrespect firsthand. Elena temporarily moved into my guest room. I didn't want to be alone, and honestly, I needed her. Some nights I'd wake up crying. Not because I missed Daniel, but because I was grieving 25 years of my life. Grieving the man I thought I'd married. Grieving the future I'd imagined. Elena would sit with me, let me process everything, remind me that I was going to be more than okay. I started therapy with Dr. Patricia Morgan, a therapist specializing in trauma and emotional abuse. Those sessions saved my life. I learned that what Daniel had done was textbook emotional abuse, the gaslighting, the constant criticism, the manipulation, making me question my own reality. I learned that my worth wasn't tied to his perception of me. I learned that I'd been systematically broken down over years, and now I had to rebuild myself from the inside out. Dr. Morgan taught me something profound. Diana, you didn't lose anything in this divorce. You escaped something. Those words changed my perspective entirely. Then Daniel crossed a line that made everything crystal clear. 6 weeks after the anniversary party, he showed up at the penthouse at midnight, drunk, banging on the door. Diana, let me in. We need to talk. You can't just throw away 25 years like this. I called the police immediately. When they arrived, Daniel was still there, slurring his words, demanding to be let into his home. The officers explained very clearly that he was trespassing on private property. I filed a restraining order the next morning. He wasn't allowed within 500 feet of me or the penthouse. The divorce proceedings moved forward swiftly. Rebecca was absolutely relentless. Daniel had zero leverage. The evidence of adultery was ironclad. The penthouse was legally mine. His lawyer knew they had no case. Daniel actually tried to claim that he deserved alimony from me, arguing that he'd sacrificed career opportunities to support the family. Rebecca literally laughed during the mediation. Your client made over $300,000 last year while conducting a 2-year affair. Try again. Then, in a twist I almost couldn't believe, Amber reached out. She sent me a direct message on Instagram. Diana, I'm so sorry for everything. I didn't know the full story. He told me you two were already separated and just living together for financial reasons. I made a terrible mistake. I hope you can forgive me someday. She wanted absolution. She wanted me to tell her she wasn't a homewrecker, that she was just an innocent victim of Daniel's lies. I read the message twice, shook my head, and blocked her. Some people don't deserve your forgiveness, your energy, or your time. The aftermath was messy and painful and exhausting. But with every day that passed, I felt lighter, stronger, more like myself. The woman Daniel had tried so hard to diminish was rising from the ashes, more powerful than ever. 9 months after that anniversary party, our divorce was finalized. I sat in Rebecca's office as she slid the papers across her desk with a satisfied smile. It's done, Diana. You're officially free. I kept the penthouse. My penthouse. Our retirement accounts were split fairly, which was only right since I'd contributed equally throughout our marriage. But here's the beautiful irony. Daniel has to pay me alimony. Not a massive amount, but enough. Every single month, a portion of his paycheck comes directly to me. The man who wanted someone younger, who told me I'd aged, who demanded I leave, he's now legally obligated to support me financially for the next 5 years. The universe has an excellent sense of humor. Christopher and Sophia have slowly rebuilt a relationship with their father, but it's entirely on their terms. Supervised holidays, brief phone calls. They're civil, but not close. Christopher told me recently, Mom, I'll always have some relationship with Dad because he's my father. But you? You're my hero. What you did took courage I didn't know existed. Sophia said something similar. You taught me what self-respect looks like. You showed me that I should never accept less than I deserve. My children watched me stand up for myself, and it taught them something invaluable about dignity and boundaries. That alone made everything worth it. As for me, I'm thriving in ways I never imagined possible. 7 months after the divorce, I was promoted to Vice President of Operations at my company, a position I'd been overlooked for twice before. My CEO told me, Diana, you've always been exceptional, but this past year, there's something different about you. You're confident, focused, unstoppable. This promotion is long overdue. Removing dead weight from your life creates space for blessings. I picked up hobbies I'd abandoned. I joined a book club with women from church. I started taking ballroom dancing lessons, something I'd always wanted to do but Daniel said was silly. I traveled to Barcelona with Elena last summer. My first international trip in over a decade. We ate incredible food, explored Gothic architecture, danced until our feet hurt. I felt alive again, young again. Not because of a man, but because I'd reclaimed myself. I even started dating again. Nothing serious. I'm taking my time, learning who I am as a single woman. But I've met kind, respectful men who open doors, ask about my day, treat me with genuine care. Men who remind me that Daniel was the exception, not the rule. One man, Antonio, a retired architect I met at a gallery opening, told me on our third date, Diana, you're extraordinary. Whoever let you go was an absolute fool. I smiled and thought, yes, yes, he was. The penthouse feels completely different now. I redecorated everything, warm terracotta and deep teals that make me happy. New furniture. I converted the guest room where Daniel used to sleep into a home office with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. Every trace of him is gone. Sometimes I walk through those rooms and I can almost hear Abuela Rosa's voice. See, mija? I told you to keep something in your name. She knew. Somehow she knew I'd need that protection. I whisper thank you to her spirit regularly. She'd be so proud of the woman I've become. Daniel tried to reconcile. About a year after the divorce, he called from a new number. Diana, I made a catastrophic mistake. I was going through something, a crisis. I miss you. I miss us. Can we try again? I actually laughed. Not cruelly, but genuinely amused. Daniel, you didn't lose me because you made a mistake. You lost me because you showed me exactly who you are. And I finally believed you. The answer is no. It will always be no. I hung up and blocked the number. That conversation gave me closure I didn't even know I needed. His midlife crisis cost him everything. His marriage, his home, his children's respect, his reputation, his dignity. Meanwhile, I gained everything. My peace, my power, my joy, my life. People ask me sometimes if I regret how I handled things. The public confrontation, the dramatic reveal. My answer is always the same, not for 1 second. Daniel humiliated me publicly, so I reclaimed my dignity publicly. I showed my children, my community, and most importantly myself that I would not be disrespected, that I knew my worth, that I would fight for myself when no one else would. I'm 54 now, and I've never felt more beautiful, more powerful, or more free. This isn't the life I planned 26 years ago when I said I do at the Biltmore Hotel, but it's better than anything I could have imagined because it's mine. Fully, completely, unapologetically mine. So that's my story, beautiful souls. The story of how my husband left me after 25 years for someone half his age, and how I turned his moment of triumph into his greatest regret. He wanted me speechless. Instead, I left him homeless. Now I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me, do you think I should have confronted Daniel publicly at that anniversary party? Or should I have handled it privately? I'm genuinely curious about your perspective. And if you've been through something similar, betrayal, disrespect, a relationship that tried to break you but didn't, share your story in the comments. You're not alone. We have a whole community here supporting each other. If this story resonated with you, if it gave you even a moment of satisfaction or inspiration, please hit that like button. It helps more people find these stories. And if you're new to Tales by Auntie Pearl, welcome to the family. Subscribe and turn on notifications because we share real stories of betrayal, resilience, and triumph every single week. Stories that remind us we're so much stronger than we think. Thank you for being here, for listening, for being part of this incredible community. Your comments, your support, your stories, they matter more than you know. Next week, I'll be sharing another powerful story about a woman who discovered her husband had an entire second family and how she made sure justice was served in the most unexpected way. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. Until then, remember these 3 things. Know your worth, protect your peace, and never, ever let anyone make you feel small. I'm Auntie Pearl, and these are our tales.